welcome back to another episode of Set at Liberty podcast. I'm your host, Brandi, and I am so excited to begin this series with you. Here we are, wow, episode 15. I'm so just gracious that you have chosen to join me week after week, that you trusted me to bring you the word, and I want you to know how much that means to me that you keep listening. Be sure to share this out this week to someone else. Share this podcast. Be sure to subscribe so that every week you know when new content has been posted, so that you don't miss anything, especially now. We're jumping into our first series. I told you last week that I just released my second book, my second devotional. It's called Take It All. It is really birthed out of that desire that I have to have everything God has for me. I want to experience to the fullest everything the Lord has intended for me to experience, to enjoy, to take part in. A few weeks ago, I shared part 1 and part 2 of my story of how I've grown up in church. I craved more. I wanted more. I didn't understand this far off God that I really thought was just angry with me all the time. But after I had a very, very life-changing experience with him, physically just experiencing his liquid love pulsing through my body, and he whispers to me, I want you to be my daughter. Taking him full on as my Lord, as my Savior, and walking with him daily since then. That was March 7th of 1998. So yeah, that was a while ago. But I am thrilled to have been walking with the Lord this long. And this book that I wrote was really birthed out of my journey to learn more, my journey to know him and know to the fullest what he has for me. What does salvation even mean? And that's where we're going to pick up this week on our episode. So be sure to like I said, subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed and following the podcast so that you don't miss a single episode as we walk through this it's essentially a 9-week devotional that I wrote on what we have availed to us as heirs of salvation. What does it mean? What does salvation mean? That's what we're going to cover today. Next week we'll pick up. I believe the next one is deliverance. It's either deliverance or forgiveness is next week, but we'll jump into that and we'll kind of take it week by week and dig into kind of the theme of the week and how we possess that piece of our rights as heirs of salvation. So, like I said, this book was really birthed out of what do I get? Like, why salvation? What is this relationship? What's the purpose? Why do I need a relationship with Jesus? Why do I need to commune with God? And so if you haven't purchased the book, I will put a link once again in the description this week in the show notes so that you can grab that book. It's available on Amazon. Take It All by me, Brandi. I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to grab that for yourself because it goes more in depth than just what we're going to go to cover here on the podcast. I want you to be able to dig in to each of these topics and understand full on how you can possess it in your life. So as I journeyed and got to know more and more about the Lord, I would read all through the Bible these amazing, miraculous acts that would happen. I read this, Paul talking about how we're changed from one being to another, where a metamorphosis actually happens in our life. It says we're a new creature in Christ. And so what does it mean? How do I take this and apply it to live a Christian life? What does salvation even mean? Is it just going to heaven when I die? Is it just being a child of God? What is it? So we've been talking kind of about that big picture of why God created the world. In sharing my story, you hear how my life was really changed, radically changed by the love of God. And now, how do we take that experience that we've had? Because I know each and every one of you may have a God story where God interacted with you and you had that life-changing experience. And so what do you do now as a believer? How do we walk? How do we impact the lives of those around us? And so I want to, excuse me, I want to dig into what the word has to say we possess and what salvation, how it applies to our life. Let's use that word, how it applies to our life. So think with me for a minute. If you've ever seen or known of a situation where someone maybe they didn't use all of the talent that they had. We hear of athletes that aren't really pushing themselves to their full potential, or maybe an employee at work, a coworker maybe at work that just isn't making use of all of the gift that they've given. Maybe they're really super talented. You might think of an artist or someone who has a great voice, but maybe they don't actually use it. They just kind of, sing in the car, in the shower, but they don't ever let anyone share in that. They don't bring it to the world. Or maybe, let's think for a minute, let's say maybe there were some students, okay? We've heard of this happening before. Maybe there's like this really amazing janitor at school that really takes care of the students, cheers them on, is just a really great confidant, kind of the center of that lifeblood of the school. We all kind of can picture that person. So let's pretend for a moment this image, follow with me as we paint this picture. So this janitor, maybe everyone loves him, he's a hard worker, but he doesn't have a vehicle. And he bikes to work every single day, rain, sleet, hail, snow, whatever it is. Well, typically if there's snow, at least in South Georgia, there's not going to be school. But however, all of you Northerners, I know you go ahead and laugh. That's okay. We are just not built for snow down here in the South. So let's say the students really kind of rally around the janitor and they do some fundraising, they pull all their resources together, and they're able to buy him a vehicle. They buy him a car, buy him a truck, and they give this to him, and he's super emotional and accepts it. It's just a beautiful story, heartwarming story. We all have kind of heard stories about that, especially now in the area of social media, or the era of social media, where people do things like this and we hear about it, and so it comes across our feed. So they've given him this truck, and he has this to his avail, it's to his avail, however he chooses to use it. But how would we feel, and how would the students feel if he just let the truck sit in his driveway? He never drove it. He just liked to look at it, and he might sit in it for a few minutes. Like, oh, this is really nice. It's a nice truck. I own this thing. It's wonderful. It has so much great potential, and it just really makes me happy to sit in it. But he never drove it. Like, all of us are thinking right now, well, that's kind of dumb. That, like, why wouldn't he use the truck? That's what's been, like, it was a gift. Why wouldn't he use that? Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. We have this beautiful gift of salvation, these rights of salvation that come to us as children of God, but a lot of us don't often take hold of all of it and actually walk it out in our daily lives. And so that was the purpose for which I wrote the book, is to how to really take possession of all of the things that God has given us through Jesus. What does his sacrifice pay for? And how can being a Christian, how can being a child of God change and impact my life, not just for my life, but for the life of those around me? Because we all know that our lives impact others. And so let's talk about how we access them. So we know that Jesus' desire, his purpose, his whole reason why he came was to remove any blockage, anything keeping us from access to the Father. He tells us that he came. He told us in Luke chapter 4. This was several weeks ago back, I think towards the beginning of the podcast. He tells us in Luke chapter 4 that he has been anointed, empowered to bring the good news to the poor. He sent me to proclaim that captives will be released, that the blind will see, that the oppressed will be set free, and that the time of the Lord's favor has come. So we see that this is his purpose, his plan, that there's good news to the poor. I'm not sure about you, but good news to poor probably would be that they're not poor anymore. Just going to go on a limb and say that. Jesus has been sent to proclaim that captives will be released. So those that are in bondage or captive or held against their will, like, they would be free. They would be able to walk a free life. That the blind will see. That would indicate pretty miraculous something if the blind can see. And that the oppressed would be set free. So those One translation says that to proclaim liberty to them that are bruised. I think that's the King James Version. It says liberty to them that are bruised. So those that have been damaged, those that are oppressed, those that have been downtrodden. So I think each and every one of us could really put ourselves at some point in time in our lives in that place. Like Jesus is describing us. He came that we would have good news. He came that we would know and be released from bondage. He came that we could see and have our eyes open. He came that our wounds would be healed, that the oppression would be released off of us. So Jesus desired to and purposed to bring about change in the life of his followers. That's you and me. Like, he did not die so that we could remain the same. That was not the purpose. Like, he died, he shed his blood, he willingly executed the plan. Remember, from the beginning of the world, he willingly walked out and received the punishment, the judgment, the condemnation, all of the things. His body was ripped apart, beaten, and tortured. He bore all of that because that's what we deserve. Each one of you and I, we deserve to die that death ourselves, but he died in our place. And so if he died and shed his blood so that all of this could happen, then 100%, I don't ever want one drop of Jesus' blood to fall to the ground and in vain or not be taken for its full value. I don't want anything to be wasted. I said that. I don't want anything that Jesus died for to be wasted. I want to possess all of it in my life, and I want to walk free. I want to live abundantly. I want to possess everything that he died to give me. Because to not accept that gift would really be disrespectful. It would hurt. I mean, I've shared with you guys my journey with my children right now. I have 2 prodigals that I'm waiting for the Lord to restore everything. But this past Christmas, we purchased gifts thinking they were coming home, and we were excited to give them these gifts, things like a show of our love, a show of our care and concern for them. And here we are in June, and they're still sitting in the living room because they didn't come home. They chose other things were more important than coming and being with us. And so they chose not to come and accept or receive the gifts that were given. And so in that, it hurt. It was heavy. Every time I walk in my living room, there's a stack of gifts sitting there for one of my children that they never came and got. And so it cuts. It says, what I gave wasn't good enough. It says that they don't want what I have because other things are more important. And it taught me the heart of the Father, and that I don't ever want there to be a gift that he gives me or offers me that I don't full well take and possess and walk out just as he intended me to. So if there's something in this word that he says belongs to me as his child, I want to take it. And that is the charge that I'm making to us today. I want you to know that this gift, this salvation, is not for just a select group of people. It's not for any particular race or ethnic group. It is not for just a select few. Our word tells us, as many as call on the name of the Lord, they shall be saved. And that's really what I want to dig into. So what does that word even mean? We have to remember, when we look at our Bible, when we read our Bible, one of the first rules of studying our Bible is that we cannot take anything from the word separate from what the original reader would have known or understood. We can't make Bible mean today what it didn't mean then. But also, for us to understand what the word really meant, we have to go back to what the original reader, the original hearer of the first time, like what their culture, what they would have understood. And so we have to unpack what their language would have meant. We know that our Bible was not written in English. The Bible was written in Hebrew, the Old Testament, and the New Testament was written in Greek. So no, I'm not a Hebrew scholar. No, I'm not a Greek scholar. But we have to look, in order for me to fully understand what the Bible means, I have to go and look at the words that were used, because words that were translated from Greek into Latin and then ultimately into English, they lost some of their meaning, some of their weight. And so we have to understand that we have to look back at the original definition. Like, what is this particular word? How was it used? And what does it mean? What does it actually mean for us? And so an example of that, so we understand colloquialisms, we understand native language. And so even, in my family, so my mom was originally born in Detroit, Michigan, and most of her family still lives in Detroit. She has a few out west and a few up in New England area. But I can remember as a kid, we absolutely grew up in South Georgia. And South Georgia has a particular way of talking, just the same as New England has a particular way of talking. And Michigan has a particular way of enunciating things and different words that they use. And so I can actually remember going to family reunions or being around my family from up north and almost needing a translator to understand what in the world we were all talking about. So there were lots of, what was that? I don't understand. Can you say that again? I'm not following. There was lots and lots of that, lots of questions. And so I think about this concept. So in the South, growing up where I grew up, it was always, so definitely hot, but humid. And so a word that we would use here in the South would be muggy. M-U-G-G-Y, muggy. It's muggy outside. Now, if I say that to you, if you are from the South, you absolutely know what I mean by telling someone that it's muggy outside. But if I'm speaking to one of you, that someone may be from the Midwest, you may be from another country, you may be from up north, you might think that I'm just saying it's hot outside. Now, hot is a part of that definition, but just thinking that I'm saying it's hot doesn't bear the full weight of that word. So if I say it's muggy outside, all my native Southerners, you understand, I mean it is hot, it is sticky, it is wet, the air is thick, it's hard to breathe. For those of you that don't live in the South, you maybe live somewhere else, imagine getting out of a steaming hot shower, immediately putting your clothes on without drying off. Yeah, I know that's pretty gross. That's what muggy means here in the South. So we walk out our front door and we just immediately are kind of kicked in the face with this hot, thick, humid, moist, sticky air. So that's what I mean when I say muggy. So if we in our own English have words that we don't quite understand the full weight of, how much more would that be true if we're looking at Greek or Hebrew? So dig in with me to what the Greek, there are two words in the Greek that are typically used anywhere we see the word salvation or we see saved or made whole. Like those are kind of the interchangeable phrases that we see this word translated. So the words that are translated in our New Testament to mean salvation are, the first word is soteria, S-O-T-E-R-I-A, soteria. And this word, it means salvation, but it's translated salvation, but what it actually means is healing, deliverance, safety, protection, preservation. Now, that all rolled into one word is a whole lot. Then the next Greek word that we see is the word sozo, S-O-Z-O, which means saved, safe from harm, whole. It carries the connotation of healing, wholeness, oneness, restoration. And so these are the two words that are translated all across our New Testament: saved, made whole, salvation. These are the words that are used. And so if I'm going to apply salvation to my life, I have to apply it based on the actual meaning, the full depth, the full weight of the meaning of those words. And so I have to apply the full meaning of soteria to my life. Healing, deliverance, safety, preservation, protection. I also apply the full meaning of sozo, saved, safe from all harm, whole. That is what salvation means. Now, I know that might be a stretch. This is not something we are typically taught on Sunday morning, sitting in church. This is a bit of a deep dive, Travel with me, and I think you're going to walk away changed. So what does this actually mean for us? When we take the full application, the full meaning of salvation in terms of what the Greek tells us, soteria and sozo, it means that my life should never look the same as it did before Jesus. Because before Jesus, I was not healed. This does apply to physical ailments. My soul was not healed. I had wounds, I had scars, I had hurts. I didn't feel safe. I shared with you the extreme paranoia that I had. I did not understand deliverance. I was bound in many areas in my life where the enemy oppressed me. We see that Jesus went about doing good and healing all who are oppressed of the devil. It's the word that she used there. We see that she needed deliverance. There are many across the New Testament, across the Gospels, that needed deliverance. And so this is part of what Jesus died to give. And so it means that Jesus shed his blood. He died to bring about soteria or sozo in my life. He died to bring about healing and deliverance and safety and preservation. All of those are parts of the meaning, the root of salvation. And so I can possess that in my life completely, totally. This is certainly more than the meaning that we get, I just get to go to heaven when I die. Now, granted, going to heaven when we die is a pretty amazing reward. That is a pretty amazing benefit of salvation. But what about right here and now? I see that there are life-changing, complete implications on the other side of heaven. But what about here? I still live life here. And hopefully I still have lots of years left here on this planet, because there's a lot I want to do. There's a lot of things I want to see, a lot of impact I want to make for the kingdom. So how can I live this life from meeting Jesus until the time of my death without him? And why would I want to live that span of life if it looked just like before Jesus? Many of us are thinking, yeah, I don't really like my life before Jesus. I was depressed, I was anxious, I was hurt, I was fearful, all of those things. I don't want to go back to that life. But there's a changing point. And that's the point I'm making, is that salvation, soteria, sozo, means there's a change. And so typically the part at which we park and where we establish salvation, meaning that going to heaven when we die part, that's just one aspect. That's the preservation piece. So think about preserves. What are preserves? Here in this, we garden in the summer, and we put up jams and jellies, and we put away stewed tomatoes and pickles and all of the great summer things. We process that, we don't process, but we prepare, and we preserve these things, because we can't eat 5 bushels of cucumbers today. We can't eat 10 bushels of tomatoes from the garden. We need to save some for later, but if we just sit it on the shelf, it's gonna rot, it'll go to waste. And so we preserve it for later when we need it. That is the heaven, that's the piece of heaven that we're referring to in soteria, that preservation piece, that I have heaven when I need it. I don't need heaven here today. I would like heaven, but I don't need it actively in my life right now. I need it after I die. So that's that preservation piece, set on the shelf, ready for when I need it. But I do need healing. I do need deliverance. I do need safety. I do need protection. And so how do I take all of that and possess it in my life? Because Jesus died to give it to me. If he fully willed himself to the place of obedience, that he laid his life down, don't you think he did it for more than just, whenever they need it, they'll get to go to heaven? I think he did it because he wanted us to be set free now. That's at least what I'm reading, especially here in Luke 4. Good news to poor, releasing captives, blind seeing, oppressed set free. Like, those words tell me that that's for life here now. And I want to live that life here now that he died to give me. I want to be set free. I want to be healed. I want to be whole. And so where this kind of challenges our way to think, we have to remember that janitor with the truck. What part of our salvation is it that we're not latching hold to? Is there a part of it that we're not possessing for ourselves? Are we fully accessing the deliverance that's at avail to us? Are we walking free from addictions and depression and anxiety? Are we walking free from that torment of a demonic spirit? Are we walking in the healing and health that the Lord has made provision for us to have? Are we taking him are we taking advantage of every bit of the gift he's given us? Now, some of you may be saying, oh, well, that's just that fake it till you make it prosperity gospel stuff. No, this is what Bible talks about. This is more than just going to heaven when you die. This is the victorious life that we read all about through our New Testament. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to believe? Are we going to take salvation in its full power? Are we going to take every aspect of what's been given to us? Are we going to say, oh, no, I'm just not worthy to take that. I'm not worthy of his grace. Well, no, none of us are worthy. That's the whole point of grace. If we were worthy of it, it wouldn't be grace to start with. And so my question, and I really, I have to challenge you, is, do you believe that salvation is just for heaven? Or do you believe that it's for here and now to walk out a victorious life? That's something you have to decide for yourself. But I challenge you to stick with me. Stay with me as we unpack how the Lord gives us each one of these pieces. How he gives us the forgiveness we need, how he gives us the deliverance we need, the healing, the protection and safety, the righteousness. We've been adopted. We're going to go through each and every one of these topics week by week, and really unpack the full impact of what the Lord designed. Like, what is it that he set up? Where do we find it in Scripture? And how can I possess every piece of that for my life? So my challenge to you as we begin to wrap up here is, I challenge you to go to the Lord in prayer and say, Lord, show me in your word. Lord, show me your heart for my salvation. Ask him, is salvation just for heaven when I die? Or are there pieces of it that I'm supposed to experience here in this world? Ask him these questions. I promise you the Lord is big enough to handle your doubts. He's big enough to handle your challenges. He's big enough to handle any question that you may have to bring to him. Promise you he will field them. And I promise you he will show you, whether it's he sends you a messenger, a teacher. The word tells us in Romans that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. It talks about the beautiful feet of those on the mountain that were sent to bear the gospel. And so I pray that you would get in your word and you buy the book. I would love for you to join with us all through this study. There's extra study for you and to dig in and journal through and really wrestle out these things, because it does tell us that we have to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. There are things that we have to question. There are things we have to wrestle with our flesh, wrestle with our soul about. The word of God is sharper than a two-edged sword, dividing soul and spirit. And so the Lord will absolutely confirm his word to you, and I trust that he will. So I challenge you to pray those things. I hope that you'll go back and listen to this once again. Pick up the weight of what salvation means in the Greek, how that applies to our life. And so we take this and we apply this by going to him and asking for these things. We go to him when we have a physical ailment going on in our body, or maybe a soul wound, pain that we're experiencing, grief that we're experiencing. We go to him and say, Lord, I ask you for your grace to heal this place. I ask you for your healing power to be in my life. Heal this thing. That's part of salvation. We can go to him and say, Lord, protect me in this situation. I don't really know all that's going on, but I know that you do. And I ask you to send your angels to protect me and guard me. We can go to him and ask him to show us if there's any areas in which the enemy is coming against us in our life and how to root that out. We can ask him to show us the path to deliverance. We can ask him to remove we ask him to show us to remove the influence of the demonic in our life. We can ask him to confirm to us that preservation. We can ask him for safety. All of these things are available to us. We just have to ask for it. We can ask for him to make us whole, because that was the purpose for which Jesus died. That's the whole point of the Christian life. And so I challenge you to wrestle with these things. Look into the Word. Grab the book for more detail, because I do walk you through many scriptures throughout the week that will help you confirm and learn and really dig in to what the Lord has for you. I love you guys. I thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you again next week right here, same time, same place. Bye.